Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure and honor of having Jayden Doyé from Atlanta, Georgia, with Prestige Accounting and Consulting. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey of where you ended up with this Prestige Accounting and Consulting. And I think you work with a lot of law firms too, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So I fell in love with accounting in high school, majored in it in college, worked various accounting jobs before starting my own firm almost 7 years ago. And when I started my firm, I worked with various different professional services. And after talking to a few lawyers, I realized that there was definitely a big need in the market. So that's why I chose to focus. After about the fifth person told me that they keep up with their IOTA account on Excel spreadsheet, I said, okay, there's definitely a need for me to help this. And I'm a licensed professional, right? So I get being a licensed professional and having to be under such scrutiny and how one mistake can cost you your license. And so I want to help these people that are helping clients get justice or get the right compensation. I want to help them stay in business and continue to create the impact that they're creating.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, like, what role do you play with law firms? I mean, do you just do their bookkeeping, their accounting, their taxes? Just tell me how it works.
Yep, we're a one-stop shop. So we provide them with their accounting services. We provide them with advisory services. We serve as their outsourced CFO. We also prepare their taxes and do tax planning throughout the year. So as you would imagine, we need a whole team to do that, right? So this definitely is not a one-man show. I can't take all the credit. I have a team of about 25 right now, and we're looking to be a team of 30 before the end of the year. And that makes it so that we can stay in communication with our clients. Most of our clients talk to us every month so that we're holding them accountable.
Do you also work with them on their trust accounts too, like
Oh, absolutely.
seal
Yes.
actions and stuff like that? Because that's very important. I mean,
Yeah, most people, the problem is that it's a pride thing, right? And nobody wants to admit that they have an issue with their trust account, which I get. So by the time that they finally come to somebody, it's a year or years where we have to do a cleanup for the IOTA. So we do a substantial amount of IOTA cleanup projects, and on a continuous basis, we're helping our clients stay in compliance. So let's just say, for instance, the paralegal writes a check to Marvel Orthopedic instead of Atlanta Orthopedic. That doesn't match, and we would catch something like that. Or if the amounts don't equal out to zero, we catch stuff like that, and we're able to bring it to the law firm's attention so that they can fix it sooner rather than later.
yeah, and I think that's the one thing that always scared me to death was trust accounts, because I've seen a lot of lawyers get disbarred even though they didn't steal any money, but they were just very lackadaisical and they didn't look after it. Had employees end up stealing from them, and
Mm,
they're the ones that end up getting disbarred, even though they didn't steal the money. I've seen that at least on 3 occasions. So I think it's very important. I mean, some people do it quarterly. I always had I reconciled both of my accounts, my operating and my trust, every month.
absolutely.
It's just to make sure that nothing was, that's one thing I didn't have to lose sleep about at night. I knew my
Right.
numbers were right, and always had my checking those accounts, those statements mailed to my home address, not my office.
Got it.
So somebody would, get it, and I don't know.
I mean,
But
the other thing is that some people don't even know what a three-way reconciliation is, right? So we're not only just trying to make sure that the accounting captures all the transactions that happen in the trust account, but there should be a subsidiary ledger for every single client. So if you have $500,000 in your IOTA account, we have to balance to the penny on how many different clients you have funds still held in that account. So we're looking at unclear checks, or we're looking at maybe you sent a check to someone and they haven't cleared it yet. So there's various different troubleshooting things that we come up with when we're doing those three-way reconciliations. And a lot of times it's even funds that are owed to the firm in there. So they love when I find money that's theirs.
Right, right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you're not looking after it, it can go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely rather you find some of my money than find where we've lost somebody else's money. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's very important. I don't think we at Pimmel we don't talk about that enough, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very, very important. I also think it's important. We were talking before we started today. You got to know there's certain numbers you just really need to know
Mm-hmm.
to be able to run a profitable and an efficient business, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be a law firm or not. And I think the big problem is they don't teach this stuff in law school. They teach you how to practice law, and they don't teach you how to run a business. They don't teach you how to market. They don't definitely don't teach you even how to set up a trust account.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think the key, like if somebody came to you and say, okay, I'm hiring you, Jayden, now tell me what numbers I really need to know every month or every week or every quarter
Mm-hmm.
where I'll know what's going down and I can make adjustments or whatever. What do you
That's
think?
a great question. So I'll kind of give you a few in that are in a few different categories. So of course, the biggest one is you want to know your profit margin. And so with profit margin, we're looking at your net income divided by your revenue. So this kind of talks about just how we're managing money in the firm and if we're overspending or not. So your profit margin kind of determines, what that looks like. But then a one that people often miss with contingency-based practices is cost per case. Because a lot of maybe the filing fees and things of that nature, or the police reports, those things might get reimbursed. But there is a cost to every case. There's some direct labor. And so we all know a lot of PI practices, because they're contingency, they don't track time. But if we don't know what the labor cost is, then we really truly don't know our cost per case. So cost per case, there's labor cost, and then there's actual marketing and case acquisition costs. So when you're paying these lead services, how much did it cost to actually acquire that case? So those things are things that people miss out on. And then when we move to like cash flow KPIs, one that I like to look at is your cash pipeline. So, based off of how much money you have right now, how long would you be able to sustain your firm? Are we at risk of having a loss, or are we at risk of having more expenses than we do cash? And that kind of helps us determine when it's appropriate to start to borrow money. I always say borrow money when you don't need it. So apply for all the credit card. When you have good credit and you have a lot of money in your bank account, that's when you apply for all the credit cards and line of credit all on the same day, so you can take the minimum impact on your credit score. And I practice what I preach. I have over, I want to say, between 400 and 500,000 in available credit lines, because I stack it. Every 6 months, I'm applying for more, applying for more. And I pay all mine off every month, but in the event of an emergency, I have those funds to be able to access. And I'm all about helping law firm owners reach new heights and catch more flights, right? So I like to say use a credit card when you can, that's going to get you reward points. You like to fly a lot, right, Ken?
Yep.
And I'm sure that you use those points sometimes for those flights, right?
I've got 3 million Delta Sky miles right now. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And I've got an American Express too, a platinum
Hmm.
that I get points on. But I use probably the Delta one, and it saves you a lot of money. Like I went to Europe last year. I don't even know what they call it, it's Premier or whatever. When you lay down and go to sleep,
Delta One.
Delta one, and it cost me about 600,000 miles, maybe
Hmm.
700, and maybe like $200 each to fly first that all the way over there and all the way back. So yeah, I probably spend 100,000 a month on my Delta card.
And it's
Back it
safer to
up.
use your credit card, and you're racking up points, so why not?
Yeah. Yeah, and we
Um,
pay it off at the end of the month, you know.
hmm
But something you said that I learned the hard way 25, 30 years ago was that don't try to borrow money when you need it because the banks
hmm
won't get it. You need it, you ain't gonna get it. You got to go
Yep.
and, like you said, your line of credit set up when you really don't even need it. Don't use it unless you need it. But then, because if you wait till you need it, the bank's going to say, "Well, you're in trouble. I'm not going to do it." You know. So, how many months? This is something because I different people tell me different things. How many months of overhead do you think you need to have in reserve for a law firm?
Oh, this is a good one. Everyone has it's subjective, right? Everybody has their own opinion. I try to say at least 3 months,
Yeah,
especially when we're dealing with million-dollar firms, and if 1 month of overhead is like 85,000, ideally about 3 months. And you can set that in a money market. You can put that in an account that's easily accessible if in the event of an emergency. But 3 months is really a good nest egg. I've never seen somebody that had 3 months in savings and they ever run out of money or they ever have an issue. When they have an emergency or there's an opportunity that presents itself to do a big investment, they have it.
yeah. I used to try to keep 2 to 3 months, and
Hmm
back when I sold out, my overhead was like 350 a month. So I had to have about $1 million. And so something else you were talking about, like got to keep up the cash flow, which is
hmm
something that I think I never really paid attention to it, but to about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago.
hmm
And Vern Harnish, he says gross income is for your vanity, net profits for your sanity, but cash flow is the king or queen. Because when
hmm
you run out of cash, the game's over, right?
Right.
You
Yep.
know, that it's
hmm
over with. I mean, you can get by, but so I always used to say it ain't what you gross, it's what you net.
hmm
But I think it's also more important to know what your cash flow is because that can make because I mean, I know one year I had a lot of credit. This has been so many years ago, and it was like a $500,000. And I had a couple of big cases that year, and I paid it off, and I said, "Yay!" But when I got ready to pay income taxes,
Right.
I was paying on phantom income because I was paying taxes on the money that I had paid off. And
Yeah.
it shocked me. I mean, it
Yeah.
really did. I mean, that's when I said, what the hell is going on? How can I owe $700,000 worth of taxes? You know?
So
Um,
let's talk about how to avoid that because you bring up a really good point. And we want to have these highly profitable businesses, but we also don't want to overpay the IRS. We don't want to hold on to the money just to give it back to the government. So what I like to tell people to do is keep a list of what I like to call big discretionary expenses. These are the things that you don't necessarily need, but they would help your business, but you don't really have to do it. I'll give you an example. A lot of the because digital marketing now it gets you so much of a high ROI. A lot of the physical billboards is more of a branding and less of a marketing thing, right? The bus stops, the car wraps, all of that. It's not necessary, but it will help grow your brand. So at the end of the year, when we're in Q4 and we're looking strategically with our money, that's when we can prepay for a lot of those expenses so that we lower our taxable income and we can go to sleep at night knowing before these discretionary expenses, we had about a 25% profit margin. After we spent all this discretionary expenses, now it's about 8, but that I'm fine with that because at least I have enough to pay my taxes and I still have a good amount of cash flow going forward.
yeah. And you also got your 179 deductions, which
Mm-hmm.
I always buy a Yukon
Mm-hmm.
or go out and buy a new phone system and the deal is
Mm-hmm.
you don't even have to pay cash for it. You can
Right.
long as it's what is it? Long as it's in service before December 31st.
Absolutely, yes. So with that, I'll give a warning. Some people overdo it. So I've seen lawyers where they have three vehicles but you're the only attorney. Why do you need a Porsche, a Maserati, and a Benz truck? I don't think so. So I've seen that actually get audited. But sometimes when if they wrap the vehicle, that further substantiates it in the audit. or if they have a company vehicle that they allow an employee to use to go back and forth to court, that further substantiates it. So we just have to think about whatever we do for tax savings, making sure that we can prove that it's ordinary and necessary in the event of it going to tax court.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's and you got to be careful. Like some things, I learned the hard way. You can't prepay your rent. You're not supposed to. And get write it off. You can, or your leases but you can when you buy something.
Mm-hmm.
Prepay marketing expenses. I used to do that. I used to do it. If I had a good year, I would go in and negotiate with the TV stations
Mm-hmm.
and get an extra 10, 15% off if I prepaid before the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
which was pretty good. So I got more ROI off my marketing dollar, didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
pay taxes. And I remember, believe it or not, when I was in law school, our law school made us take taxation,
Mm-hmm.
even though it was crazy. But anyway, I had a guy that was teaching, and he was IRS, and he was a former IRS agent, lawyer. One day I said, he said, what you want to do is, push it forward, delay it, delay it. And I said, well, sooner or later, you're going to have to pay it. He said, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be dead. You won't care.
Mm.
Because he was saying prepay too. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Prepay. And I said, well, sooner or later, it's got to catch up. I mean,
Yeah.
it
I
will.
mean, that's true, but maybe you'll have a bad year and that be the year that, things finally equate or whatever the case may be. There's always more marketing dollars to spend. There's always some things to prepay for. And if you prepay it this December, then next December you can do the same thing. But even with that, with the marketing, we have to get strategic with that as well. We don't want to just put out this money and then not get our return on investment. And with there being so many different PI lead services, I really want people to really think about how much the cost per lead is, but then also cost per case,
Yeah.
right? Those are two different things. So
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. One service, let's just say a service will charge you $300 per lead, but you only sign up one person for every 10 leads you get. So 300 times 10 leads, that's $3,000. Now, let's say another service charged you 1,500 per case, per signed case. Now we're not even calculating cases because they're only sending you signed cases and it's 1,500. So on the sticker, the sticker price might seem a little higher, but when we look at actual signed cases, that KPI is actually a little bit lower.
I've got a rule of thumb, but I'm interested if you have a I got a rule of thumb on every dollar I spend, I want to get six back. I can live with five, but I want six
Hmm.
better. Like I'm saying, if my average fee is $18,000, then I can pay up to $3,000 for a case and be okay. But if my average fee is $9,000, then I really can only pay $1,500 because
Right.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that. I like that model. When I look at that, I look at comparing that specific KPI. I'm looking at marketing altogether.
Oh yeah,
I'm not only looking at the service that you use, but then if you have a marketing VA, if you're paying for a website, we have to look at all of the marketing efforts all together because there's direct marketing costs and then there's indirect marketing costs.
absolutely.
So, but strategically, historically, most companies see much higher revenue when they're spending more in marketing.
I'll get you work with all different kinds of law firms. Do you work with any PI law firms?
Oh yeah, a lot of PI. We
Okay, so
focus on trial and PI.
my question is this: what are you seeing nationwide on the clients that you've got? What percentage of their gross? Because I get this question, I got a different answer, but I want to know what are you seeing the percentage of gross that they're spending on their marketing?
I'm seeing people spending a lot more on their marketing now. And the bigger the firm, the bigger percentage because they need to spend it for tax, for to lower taxable income. So it shifts. It's like a sliding scale. The bigger the firm, the more that they're spending on marketing versus the smaller firms, especially people that are, just started within a year or two because of that pipeline of how long it takes to settle these cases, they're spending much less.
Yeah.
But percentage wise, anywhere from like 20 to 40%. Well, no, I wouldn't say 40%, maybe about like 20 to about
30.
35%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I see anywhere from 15 to 30. And of course, when people ask me what percentage you should spend, I say, well, it really depends on how many cases you want. Because I think it's the wrong question to ask, but that's just me. I mean, but I understand that. But the deal is, I had some years where I spent 15%. I had some years where I spent 30%, but it depended on whether I was in a reorganization year or
Hmm.
was it a growth. I was really like, I want to go kill it this year.
Right.
Because sometimes you have to as you grow and get bigger and bigger, you have to reconfigure things. You got to re-engineer
Yep.
those.
There's two types of marketing. There's the lead generation stuff that's going to get you right now, and then there's a long-term play. Like when you're sponsoring certain organizations or events, sometimes it takes a couple years or
Yeah,
a couple of for people to get to know you before they start sending you referrals or sending you cases, whatever the case may be.
yeah. I run masterminds for Pilma, and we used to say you could, comfortably spend, 40% for labor and 20% for marketing, and then you got 10% for everything else, and you're to make 30%. But I'm seeing a shift to where now, because of AI and offshore, I'm seeing lawyers get their labor costs down to 30 and they're moving their marketing costs in the 30s and maybe even, like you said, almost 40 because
Hmm.
of the influx of equity and Morgan and big firms, regional firms and national firms. The lawyers are having to spend more because the market's so saturated,
Hmm.
spend more to get the same amount of cases.
It's saturated, but somehow a lot of people still may find a way to make a lot of money, right?
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
we have to get strategic, and there's just so many different avenues now where that, back in the day maybe you just couldn't afford it, and there were different rules back then. Now things have changed a lot as far as marketing is concerned. And let's be honest, some people are doing things that aren't that ethical, and I read the disciplines and I'm like, man, you should have known that person was a runner. You should have known.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Greed gets in the way sometimes, for
Yep.
sure.
I just say be ethical. And to your earlier point, get the money, get the lines of credit when you don't need it. Because when people have their back against the wall, that's when they start to do things that are unethical. Like,
Yeah,
do you know how bad things have to be for somebody to rob somebody? People who are wealthy don't do that. People that are back against the wall, about to get evicted, do stuff like that. And so it's the same thing in the law. People steal from their clients.
I'll never forget this. My father said, just remember, because I said, I ain't worried about that. I trust him immensely. He said, you should, but desperate people will do desperate things.
Hmm.
Saying, he said, even you say you really, when it comes to your pocketbook, you can't trust nobody. I
Right.
said, because I don't care how loyal or whatever, but if they get desperate, they'll do desperate things, which means they'll steal from you. I know that's probably a bad way to feel, but he's right, though. Like
Hmm.
it's what you said. If your back's up against the wall, I mean, you're going to do whatever it takes to survive. You know,
Yep.
that's just the way life is.
Hmm.
Good deal. So, anything else you want to talk about? Anything I didn't ask you?
I could talk about this for hours. I think we definitely touched a lot on KPIs today. And if I had to give them something in closing, I would say don't just take this information and say, oh, yeah, that's good. Actually implement it. Create a dashboard that you're monitoring every month and having conversations with your leadership team so you can decide how you want to move and continue to make data-driven decisions in your firm. And when I say dashboard, it doesn't have to be some super complicated technology. It can be as simple as a spreadsheet where you keep track of the just, 5 to 10 KPIs each month.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So, if somebody wants to pick your brain more, because we only had 30 minutes a day, or just talk to you about your services, how's the best way to get up with you?
Yep, easiest way on all my social media platforms. I have a link in the bio where they can schedule a complimentary consultation. They can also go to talktojayden.com and they'll have the ability to schedule a complimentary call with me.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, thank you so much. Some good little nuggets there.
Absolutely.
Borrow money when you don't need it. I like that.
Yeah. All
Uh,
right. Thank you so much for having me.
all right, thank you. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.